So, welcome to Pregnant Possibilities. I'm Jeanne Schumacher, and my partner in crime is Dr. Debra Shapiro. And welcome to the Pregnant Possibilities. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about toxins. Oh my gosh, it's like in everything that we're using, without question. And I think a lot of these toxins are coming from plastics, pesticides, chemicals we're being exposed to. So today, we're going to focus a little bit on plastics. Doc, how you doing?
Very well, very well. I thought we could talk about pesticides, but we can talk
Yeah,
about
well, that too.
plastics also.
Well,
But
we're also talking about pesticides too. Those are chemicals, those are toxins. So we're going to jump off and start with some pesticides too. So take it
okay,
away, Doc.
excellent, excellent. Wow, sometimes I feel like we've been part of this huge food and even a biochemical experiment for the last 70 years. After World War One, and certainly after World War II, the same chemical companies that were making equipment for chemical warfare decided to think of a peacetime application for some of their chemicals, and these became our pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and things like that, because they kill things. All right, so their use now is really almost ubiquitous, and they're very dangerous. A lot of these pesticides and herbicides, they're being used in large quantities. I'd like to tell you first off that there's an amazing website called the Environmental Working Group that has a list. Every year they look very closely at examples of produce coming into this country and being out in the markets, and they test them for herbicide and pesticide and fungicide residue. And it's incredible how much of these chemicals, how many of the different chemicals might be on one piece of fruit, like on one strawberry. I remember once hearing that they use like 22 different chemicals on strawberries, which I suppose are very delicate. And if you ever tried to grow them yourself, and if you want to grow them in large quantities to feed the country, you could imagine. So I think we started out with good intentions, but didn't realize the effects of these chemicals on the environment and on other living things and on us as well. So the Environmental Working Group, which is ewg.org, has the two lists, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And these are wonderful lists. I use them all the time. They're updated every year, because things change every year. Some you'll see on lists all the time, and some you won't. They'll shift around a little. The Dirty Dozen, these are the produce, the types of produce that you should really try to buy organic, because they're going to have the least pesticides and herbicide residue. And then the Clean 15 are the ones that have the least. So if you see them in the market and they don't have an organic alternative, then you would be safe using those. So the question is, does it really make a difference? Are these really healthier? They're certainly more expensive. So is it worth it? And I know that I've talked to Dr. Greger about this, and he has a few really good videos about this. I think of it in a sort of a more holistic way, because it's not just, we're all very individualistic in this country. I'm eating this, it's cheaper, and I'm going to buy it, right? Even though it has these pesticides and herbicides and fungicides. But it's not just about us. It's really also about the farm workers that are exposed to much more, and the farm workers' families that are exposed. There's this drift of a pesticide drift. So they're suffering much more because they're exposed to much more of this toxin. It's also that these chemicals are then going off into our groundwater. They're going down into our waterways. They're creating the pesticide runoff the nitrogen and pesticide runoff is creating these dead zones in our oceans. There's a huge one in the base of the Mississippi where nothing is growing. And so they're killing our pollinators. Some of them are killing our pollinators and destroying some of their food, for example, some of the monarch butterflies that really rely on milkweed, but that's being killed by, I believe that's glyphosate. So, and in addition, they are causing birth defects, and they are causing cancers. So it's true that one person deciding that they can only eat the traditionally grown produce may not see that much of a difference in their life. But I think there's a bigger picture here, and that's what I want people to think of, that we're all part of a huge living organism, and it's not just about you, it's about everyone. And so I definitely think about the people who are exposed to much more, like the farm workers and the people who are out there in the field and are having this stuff applied. Actually, I believe that a farm worker actually successfully sued Monsanto, that was the maker of glyphosate or Roundup, because he got cancer, and this glyphosate, which is now on on Roundup Ready soy, for example, and they've had these seeds that are where they've made the plant resistant to the herbicide, to glyphosate or Roundup. And then they can just apply more and more. But glyphosate is also applied as a desiccant, just to keep things dry for other products. So I would look for organic when possible. The other thing about produce that has a lot of these pesticides and herbicides on them versus ones that are grown organically is that they have the same amount of vitamins and minerals. That's true. They do, whether they're organic or inorganic. They have the same amount of vitamins and minerals. But there's something else in plants, and those are those antioxidants and the phenolic compounds that are health promoting for humans. And those seem to be less in the inorganic, and the ones that in the produce that has the pesticides applied to them. So less of the antioxidants, and that's true. There was an idea that maybe the plant itself didn't have to make as much antioxidants because they didn't have to fend off the pests. We don't really have any proof of that. And they think maybe it's really just that the growth promoting fertilizers are actually causing the plant to pay more attention to growth and not as much to defense. And that was the last I heard about that. So, but they are not as healthy, and they can, on the other side, they can cause cancers and birth defects. I would, there aren't going to be a lot of studies of, where they have some people exposed to pesticides and some people not. We just have those. We have those because we have the farm workers, and we know that there's more ADHD and there's more autism, and there are more birth defects and there's more cancer. And so I understand that it can be more expensive, but if you're not eating meat and you're just eating plants, you're saving money there, because I think meat is probably still the most expensive thing in your basket. But you can pay attention. Obviously people have budgets, and they have to decide where to spend their money. And that's why you should look at the Clean 15 for the plants that the produce that you can buy that doesn't have to be organic, and then just wash things very, very well. I believe that if you wash your plants the plants that you're going to eat in water with a little bit of baking soda in it, and then rinse it really well, I think that gets off the most pesticides. I know there's a lot of talk about, salt water, but I think it's really you can jump in, Jeanne, if you know about this, but I think it's a little bit of baking soda that really helps to remove toxins. There are also products that you can buy, but I don't think you really need those. And Gregor might have a video about that as well. I'm going to be attending the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine that's put on by PCRM. That starts today after we get off today, and goes on for a couple of days. I attend a couple of conferences every year on plant-based nutrition, so I can stay up to date with everything and get you the best information. I'll bring to our program, the Pregnancy Advantage, and also to my private coaching. So, and lastly, next week we're going to have Neil Barnard, Dr. Barnard, with us. So you don't want to miss that. That will be you'll hear on the Facebook page about our pregnant possibilities, and that's with Neil Barnard talking about hormones. So this is going to be very exciting. We're very, very excited to have him here. So Jeanne, what do you have to say about pesticides and herbicides? Anything you want to add?
Oh, please. Yeah, no, and just going back to the produce, yes, making it alkaline. What you're using is baking soda to make it alkaline. And what I do is I have water my water goes through, I have town water, and then it goes through a 4-stage filtration system that I created. What I did is I looked up you can get the report from your water, unless you have a well, from your town. They usually post it on the website of the municipality that you're living in. And so I looked up what I'm dealing with primarily in my watershed, in the water that I'm dealing with. And then I bought or created a 4-stage filtration system that deals with the majority of the chemicals that are in that. Then it goes through up to an ionizer, which I can change the pH of my water. So what I do is I make the pH 11.5. And what that does is, because if you just wash your produce, because I only buy organic and, produce, and then I still wash it in this 11.5 pH water. And what happens is they still use pesticides, even if you're buying organic, but it's organic pesticides and it's oil-based. So what that happens is the pesticide stays on the produce. And then what I do is I take the water and, soak it. And then what happens is it emulsifies. It emulsifies the oil and breaks it apart. And you should see the stuff that comes off, even organic produce. So yeah, so what you're doing with baking soda is you're doing the same thing as you're making it more alkaline, the water itself, because baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. That OH on there is what makes it a base. So it can't help as the chemistry teacher coming out of me. So, but I think just in general, pesticides overall there's some serious nasty things that are happening. And I came out one day, my husband this was before we were living in the other town. We had a gravel driveway and we had a well. And I come home and my husband is spraying the driveway with, like nasty, weed killer. Okay. And I came home and I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, look at all the weeds in the driveway." And I said, "Okay. There's a couple of other things we can do for that instead of using that." I said, "Where's our well?" And he pointed over, and it was like maybe 150 feet away. And I said, "Our well is pulling in water. Where do you think those toxins are going? That the water is going to go down through the gravel, kill the weeds, yes, of course. And then where do you think it's going to go after that?" And he's like, "Oh, so I shouldn't be using this?" And I'm like, no. So I said, and I've got a great recipe if anybody's interested on what you can use, like on gravel walkways and driveways where you don't want things to grow. And so basically, did you ever hear, go back to the Bible, did you ever hear like they salted a field so things won't grow? Well, that's what what you'll do is you'll make a salt solution. You'll add a little bit of, say, either like an apple cider vinegar or white vinegar, just an acid. And you're adding an acid, you're adding a salt, you're adding a lot of water. And then I add some like Dawn dish soap or something just to, something to make it stick to the plant itself. And I put that into a sprayer, and then I just go around and spray the areas that are not going to be, that I don't want things growing, like a gravel driveway or a walkway or things like that. So that is something that you can use that's going to be non-toxic to the environment, but also make it so that plants are not going to grow. So I think that's the whole point, is that you want to find non-toxic alternatives so that, because I think part of me, when you talk about toxins, when they go down the drain, you use whatever toxins inside your house and they go down into the drain, then, we have this mentality of out of sight, out of mind. And if it's out of sight, out of mind, you think, oh my God, now I don't have to deal with it. Oh, well, yeah, you still have to deal with it in the environment. And it's still there. And this is one of the problems that we're dealing with within our water, is that our water is very, very toxic. And we have such chemicals and, like BPA. Let's talk about BPA for right now. All right. BPA is something that is phenomenal. Okay. And you're now starting to see this every place where you're seeing like, hey, this is BPA free. Sort of. So let's talk about that for 1 second. So BPA is the chemical that makes plastics hard, like your hard water bottle, plastic, things like that. And so when you get into these to make it BPA free, you have to change the molecule and use something else. So what they did is they went in, and the BPA is a very large molecule. So what they did is they went in and broke off a little tiny piece of that molecule and changed it for something else. So legally, technically, it's not BPA anymore. So they can legally say it's BPA free. But in reality, it's still the same thing. You know, it's smoke and mirrors is what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, these things, these BPAs are pretty, we're finding out, you know, that they're having huge health issues on us, you know, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to say BPA free, you know, and it can leach into your food. Like if you're, you know, using it in like in a water bottle or, you know, something like that, it can leach into your food. And well, anyway, jump in, Doc, anytime.
Yes, yes. So one other shout out to the Environmental Working Group, because they also have a water uh, resource, which I used a few years ago just because I started thinking about the chemicals in our environment. And just like you said, going down the drain and into our water supply. And I was interested in what would my water look like. So you can get onto that ewg.org, and then you can look for their water resource guide. And then you just put in where your water comes from. Look at your water bill and you'll see where it comes from. You put in your your zip code, but then it gets even more specific about exactly where your water comes from, because there can be a few different sources, and they will tell you what is in your water. And this is eye-opening. This was very eye-opening for me, and I immediately, because I was trying to get away from the plastic water bottles, and I know that, you know, Dr. Greger said just drink tap water. Well, you can drink tap water if your tap water is clean, but I don't. When I looked at my report from the EWG, I was not going to drink that stuff, and you can tell it doesn't taste right. I mean, there's something wrong, and there were a lot of chemicals in there. And there were a lot of chemicals that were over the EPA limit. That's what I was looking at, because they'll tell you how much is allowed, because some things is allowed, but some of them were over. And so then there's a guide that takes you from each chemical and the research about it to what kind of a filter you need to get rid of that. And so, you know, you could spend a lot of money and get rid of everything, including the radiation, if you get a reverse osmosis filter, but that does use a lot of water, and I worry about my water bill as well. So I had, you know, we decided which was best for the house, and we got an under the counter, under the sink water filter, and even the animals love it. And so everyone was drinking more water, and it's not a huge expense, and I feel a little bit better because it is getting rid of some of these other chemicals like the PFAS and stuff. So per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. The BPA may be a bit obesogen, may cause your child to be obese, but it may also be associated with things like autism spectrum disorder and ADHD. So some of these chemicals, these are, you know, the BPA, the phthalates, the parabens, PFAS, the fire retardants. These are endocrine disrupting chemicals. So they actually interfere with the endocrine system of your developing embryo. They start very, very early. So if you have a load of these toxins in you because you haven't been paying attention, you know, your whole young life, which I totally understand, because who knew that we were living in this toxic soup? I certainly didn't, and you probably didn't either. But now you know. But the problem is that they're going to be affecting the embryo from its earliest stage, when it's just really a little blastocyst, and from the placenta, and there are going to be more issues during.
Well, it's not just that, but I mean, like, research has linked even low dose of BPA exposure to cardiovascular problems, including coronary heart disease, angina, heart attack, hypertension, peripheral artery disease. And these findings suggest that this type of exposure could trigger arrhythmias, you know, atherosclerosis, blood pressure changes. So you're starting to see impact. And so that is, especially if you're trying to create another human being, okay, that's putting a phenomenal stress on your system. So that's one of the reasons why we want to help women to get their bodies cleaned out before they get pregnant. This is not the best time to be going into pregnancy, but this is the best time to get your body pregnant ready, so that when you go shields down, that your body's going to be the best place that you could give birth to. And by the way, we have a little gift for you. Debra and I have put together the top 3 things that we think that you should be doing to get your body pregnant ready. So you can go to pregnantready.net and get that free gift, because these are the top things that you should be doing for sure. I mean, we have a whole thing that we talk about a lot of this stuff in our programs, because who knew? I mean, we'd be these walking chemical experiments. I mean, literally. And I see this, you know, in the impact in the classroom. Can I say it's because of BPA? Can I say it's because that? No, it's all of the environments, the food that we're being exposed to, the environmental toxins we're being exposed to. And let's just face it, we're not exercising as much. Okay. Our bodies are designed to exercise and move, and we have to be able to move and keep going. So they don't call it labor for nothing. So your body needs to be in the best shape it can be for you to go through this process. And having gone through it twice, it's phenomenal, no question. I mean, it's a life-changing event without question. But it is a lot of work, not gonna lie. Okay. I mean, I remember coming home just absolutely exhausted, after going through labor. And the labor was quite lengthy. It's not one of those, hey, I'm out in the yard and I pop the puppy out and, I go back to weeding, no. This is definitely, yeah, it's pretty labor intensive.
The average time for first labor is 24 hours. I mean, that's usually what it takes. I've seen some young people, very young people, like late, teenagers who, very, very fast. But most women are waiting, and it's a little bit longer. So can we talk for a minute about phthalates? Because I can say that probably 3 years ago, I didn't really know what a phthalate was. And now I feel like I'm thinking about
that.
What?
Let me jump in on that, because the phthalates, like the BPA makes the plastic hard. Mm-hmm. It's the phthalates that make the plastics soft.
Right.
So it's the phthalates, like your shower curtain, okay? That soft plasticky feel. And they used to have, and I think this takes me back to, when I was teaching about this in chemistry and talking about, with my students, because we're caught in the middle. And I remember distinctly back that it was California actually, that had led the way about toxic toys for children. Because if you're dealing with small children, like a 1, 2, 3-year-old, everything goes in their mouth. That's how they test their environment. Everything goes into their mouth. And so they were making these toys, especially when they start teething, they would make the toys out of phthalates. And they would put like those gel inside, so you put it in the freezer, and the baby is gnawing on this, and and it was soothing. Okay, well, take a carrot and freeze it, okay, and let them gnaw on that. Okay, they're going to get some nutrients out of it, and it's not going to be toxic. Okay,
what a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, so there's alternative ways that you can do things, but so anyway, California was leading the ban on these toxic toys, and so they had to get rid of the phthalates in California. And I think it's now across the country, especially for the toys for the children. But what bothered me tremendously about this is 1 week on the cover of Time, they had, California bans toxic toys, and all these other things. And then like about 2 weeks later, it was the head of like I forget what it was, like the Chemical Plastic Society, something mm-hmm. like that, the American Farmers, American Chemistry Society. I forget what it was, but they wrote this lengthy article, in response to the toxic toy article, saying that, what are you talking about? Phthalates are fine. It's not a problem. It's, and so you're hearing from this group saying it's okay. And then you're hearing from California saying, no, we're banning these. Okay. And you're caught in the middle, and ultimately you as the consumer or you as the mother have to make these choices for the health of your family. And I think this is one of the big ones. So phthalates are definitely known endocrine disruptors, okay? And your primary, and a lot of these phthalates are caught in scents. So one of the first things that you can do is get rid of anything with scents in your house, like your laundry detergent, Bounce. Oh my gosh. My husband and I were out walking the other night on a trail, socially distancing, okay? And this woman passes us. She was walking a lot faster than us. And we could smell, she had Bounce on her clothes, and I could smell her for at least a quarter of a mile ahead of us. We were still getting the scent from her.
Well, can I jump in as a gynecologist about Bounce?
Oh, please do.
Okay. So it's all the men just have to close their ears. If there are any men listening. Not a week would go by when I was in private practice, not a week, sometimes not even a day that would go by that I did not have a patient coming to me with vulvar itching. And it was almost always, I mean, sometimes it was yeast, but usually, and really 99% of the time, vulvar itching was because of a combination of irritants, including dryer sheets. Dryer sheets, mini pads that are also bleached, and scented soaps, things. I mean, these things are fine, maybe under your arms or whatever, but and not before you're trying to get pregnant, of course. But these other scented soaps and things that people were using down there, which you'd think they wouldn't, but they were. And this combination, and the bleach in their laundry and the laundry detergent. So they were all causing this irritant dermatitis. But I'll tell you, those dryer sheets were amazing. And even for a young girl, I once had a very young girl be brought in. She was prepubescent, so she was like 10 or 11, and her nipples were cracked and bleeding. And it was because her mother was washing her little cotton training bras with bleach and then putting them in the dryer with dryer sheets. And all we needed to do was remove that, a little hydrocortisone, and it got better. And it was very quick. But I'm telling you, those dryer sheets are just terrible on your underwear. So please, everyone should wash their underwear in unscented soap and hang them to dry if you have any issue at all with vulvar irritation.
Well, that's one of the things they do is they don't hide, or they hide the term phthalates. Instead of using those chemicals in there that are known phthalates, that are known endocrine disruptors, what they use is the word fragrance.
Exactly.
Okay? And so, I don't want my competitors to know what I'm using stop it. I can take that to any analytical chemist and in 10 minutes tell you exactly what's in there. That just makes me crazy. So, it's proprietary information. We don't want our competitors to know. Stop it. Stop it. So what they do is they hide that term. Actually, there's no regulation at all in this industry, in anything, in terms of, they can put anything they want into your products, and they do, because they think you want to have a clean, fresh smell. Okay, well, I can get that by hanging my clothes outside to dry, by nature, free. I like that.
They just had a new product that I saw advertised that you could put in your washing machine that will keep, no, maybe it was in your dryer. It was in one or the other that would keep your clothes smelling fresh for 3 months. You only had to put it in once, and it would continue to put this chemical into your clothes so that they would smell a certain way, which I have to say, when I was very young, I liked that smell. I did. And it wasn't until later, really learning about all of this, and I used to like the smell of barbecued meat too, right? We can change, and we do change. So what we think is safe, and just like barbecued meat is not safe for you, and even smelling those heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the same thing with these scented products. So if you're trying to get pregnant, please remove the scented products, because they have these phthalates and the plastics. And
that's one of the easiest things you can do. Okay. Yeah. The other thing you can do is go to EWG. They have a cosmetic and a cleaning product database. Please utilize that. It's a great place to start. I'm not 100% in accordance with what they're doing, in terms of how they rate things. I have some disagreements there, but it's a really great resource and a good place to start. And so, you need to be understanding about these chemicals, what they're doing, the BPA, the phthalates. That's one of the whole points of our whole program, is we want to help you to remove these toxins from your life. Like, for example, you're going to go, if you're going to be feeding a baby, okay, baby bottles. Okay, hopefully you're breastfeeding, because that's the best thing you can do. But if you've got bottles, BPA, you want to make sure that what you're using is going to be safe, because that's what you're going to be feeding your baby with. So that's the whole point of our program, is we want to make you aware. We don't want to make you crazy either, because you have to live, but if you can do some simple things like adopt a whole food plant-based diet and learn about some of these toxins and how easy it is to find alternatives. Like I was saying about the cutesy toys. Yes, they're cute and great and wonderful, but if they're going to be causing your child harm and possibly down the road health issues long term, okay, and affecting their IQ and their intelligence, freeze a carrot, call it a day, you know?
Exactly. There's some wonderful, if you want to look online, there's a lot of information about endocrine disrupting chemicals now, and there's more coming out all the time. But the Endocrine Society has a big paper on endocrine disrupting chemicals that you might want to see. Because it's pretty interesting, when you think about all the people who have thyroid disorders, dysfunction, and endometriosis, and fibroids, these chemicals that you can be exposed to from, T minus 9 months have an effect. So if you want to have the healthiest pregnancy, the healthiest child possible, you want to remove some of them. And I remember growing up, and it was better living through plastic. Do you remember that adage? That it was a big
better living through modern chemistry.
Right.
No, no.
Well, we thought it was, but it turns out probably not to be true. So it's certainly easier to pop a saran wrap on something and cook everything and wrap everything in plastic, and but not the best. It turns out it's just not the safest. So we want you to be as safe as possible, but of course, within reason. I mean, we may not have the ability to do everything all at once, but there are certain steps you can take, and any small step you can take to remove some of these toxins from your life is going to make a difference. So, so please just try.
Especially if you're having trouble getting pregnant.
Yes.
And we're starting to see a lot of people that are having issues getting pregnant. And before you go down that in vitro fertilization rabbit hole, I mean, wow, that is, first of all, it's expensive, number one, not covered by insurance, but it's doing a lot of things. You're consuming a lot of drugs and taking it and injecting yourself. I mean, it's not a pleasant process. Hopefully you can get a baby out of it, but wow, if you could just go through our program first and clean out your body, hey, maybe you might not have to go down that rabbit hole, and you'll have a healthier baby.
And you'll know how to cook whole plant foods, so that you can raise healthier children and have healthier communities and be able to bring amazing food to your potlucks and to friends when we're able to do that, and really change the world. Because there's no way that we're all going to be able to eat the way you and I grew up eating. We're not going to be able to do that for the future generations. We don't have the resources in the universe to do that. So we need to we need to reduce greenhouse gases, and the only way to do that is really through eating a plant-based diet.
Well, next week we have Dr. Neil Barnard coming on to talk about, oh my God, I can't wait, and talk about plant-based pregnancies and the changes that he's seen along his way. And so I'm excited for that. Very excited, because Dr. Barnard's he's like a knight in shining armor to me, and he's just an incredible person. Yeah. So we're looking forward to that. Don't forget the top 3 things that you can do to change your health destiny and the baby's health destiny in getting pregnant, to get your body pregnant ready. Go to pregnantready.net. And so we will see you next week with Dr. Neil Barnard.
Yep. You take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Enjoy your conference.
I will.